1 year ago this week, President Obama signed the 21st Century Cures Act into law.
The law provided more federal funding for medical research with the goal of finding cures faster. Our Washington correspondent, Jessica Smith, looked at the law's impact in its first year, and she joins us now live from Washington, D.C. Jessica?
Well, Congressman Fred Upton wrote the 21st Century Cures Act. He says that over the past year, there's been a lot of progress made, but there's still work to do.
It's been 1 year since President Obama signed the 21st Century Cures Act into law. Republican Congressman Fred Upton helped design the bill.
Disease strikes Republicans and Democrats. We needed to work together on this.
The Cures Act boosted funding for medical research, sped up the approval process for drugs and experimental treatments, and put a spotlight on brain health.
Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all those different things that weren't looked at maybe with the same priority because it didn't have the resources from before. All that changed.
Earlier this month, during a Senate hearing examining the Cures Act, the NIH said it's launched more than 100 brain research projects in the past year. Congressman Dan Kildee co-sponsored the bill. He says it puts more resources toward mental health in the opioid crisis.
Beginning to see this as disease and seeing opioid abuse as disease, addiction as disease, not something to be only criminalized.
Because of the Cures Act, Upton and Kildee say Michigan received $16 million to fight addiction in 2017 and will get funding this year as well. Upton tells us researchers at the FDA and NIH are working on better ways to curb the epidemic.
Can we not develop a new drug that solves that pain problem without the addictiveness that's attached to it?
Kildee says the Cures Act is a good step, but it cannot be the final solution.
If we want to ease human suffering and at the same time deal with the economics of health care, we need to do a whole lot more.
When this bill was passed, there was some criticism that it gave pharmaceutical companies too much freedom and too much power. I did ask Upton about that. He says that speeding up the drug approval process will actually bring prices down, and he says there are still protections in place to make sure drugs are safe, so he's really not too worried about that issue. Reporting live in Washington, Jessica Smith, 24-hour News 8.
Jessica, do we know how the upcoming spending bill might impact medical research funding included in the Cures Act?
Well, Upton told me he thinks that the Cures Act really gives these medical researchers more stability, more certainty in knowing how much funding they're going to get. But then I talked to Kildee, and he says these researchers need to be able to plan years out if they're doing these projects. He says that passing short-term spending bills is really not very helpful to them because they only know what they're doing month to month. So he says passing a long-term budget would really be helpful.
Jessica Smith, live from D.C. tonight. Thanks, Jessica.